Welcome to Life Lessons from the Srimad Bhagavatam. Today we continue with the 11th canto. I've been studying the 11th canto for the past couple of months. Our topic, who or what is God? Tell me about God. And this is based on the third chapter, verses 34 to 40. I would say this is one of the most important questions that we can ask. And from a Vedantic point of view, this is the real fulfillment of the human form of life, to be able to ask this question: what is God? Who is God? And so in our discussion today, we get to explore this question from the perspective of the Bhagavatam. And continuing with these questions by the king Nimi, he's asking the 9 yogis, the 9 kings of yoga, different philosophical questions. So to get started, I'll chant some verses of invocation, and then we'll dive into our discussion. In the meantime, you can just say hello, put a note in the chat, let me know that you're there, and it makes it more personal when I know who I'm talking to. Nārāyaṇam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam udirayet. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Nārāyaṇa, unto Nārāyaṇa Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Canto 1, Chapter 2, verse 17. Shrinvatam swakata Krishna, punya shravana kirtana, hridyantasto hyabadrani, vidunoti suhrit satam. Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is the Paramatma, super soul in everyone's heart and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee who has developed the urge to hear his messages, which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. Last verse, text 18. Nasta prayeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by the rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and transcendental loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Welcome, Shamalaki, joining us from Chicago. Always grateful to have you with us. We have also Shama Manjari joining us from South Africa. Welcome, Shama Manjari. Thank you for being here. From Port Elizabeth, thank you for that. I think in the last class I might have said Port Elizabeth or Uitenhage. I wasn't quite sure. They're close to each other. Thanks, Shama Manjari. Then on Instagram, we have with us Shakar Shushmita, who says hi. Welcome, Shakar. Thanks for joining us. We have War is Sick, who's a regular participant. War is Sick says hello. Thank you for being here. We have Word of Moon XMW. Thank you for being here. Nirmal Bhendakar, Swatantra 77, Av E, Keshav Rajesh, and Warasek tells me it's Joey from Brooklyn. Thanks for that, Joey. Now I know better who you are. We've met at some of the gatherings in Brooklyn and I think 26 Second Avenue as well. Great to have you here. All right, I introduced our topic. It's this question: who is God? A question that comes up all the time. I think since the beginning of time, human beings, since human reasoning, this question has been asked, and often it comes to this idea of God is either a person, that's one view, or God is an energy. That's another idea that comes up. So, is there a God? If there is, then we often hear these two different types of ideas. One, that God is a deity that is human like, has personality, and others, they'll describe God as the universe or the void or bliss. So the Bhagavatam has an interesting angle on this question. And just for context, remember, this is King Nimi asking questions of these 9 yogis. He's asked questions about what is bhakti, what is devotion, what is the bhakta, the devotee. He's asked about Maya, he's asked about mukti, karma yoga, and today we're discussing his question about God or Bhagavan. Excuse me, I have allergies, so I have to use a tissue frequently. So this question appears in Canto 11, chapter 3, verses 34 to 40. And that's what we're going to discuss. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We're going to discuss these verses under 3 headings. 1, Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality. 2, Brahman, the all-pervasive, energetic. And 3, surprise, Jiva, the soul. So let's dive in. Verses 34 and 36, we have King Nimi asking the question. He says, please tell me about the transcendental situation of Lord Nārāyaṇa. So he's addressing God by this name, Nārāyaṇa. He is the absolute truth and the super soul in the hearts of all living beings. Please explain this to me because you are all most expert in transcendental knowledge. These are the 9 brothers that he's referring to as experts in transcendental knowledge. And so Pipalayana is the yogi who will answer the question. Pipalayana, one of these 9 brothers, he said, you should know Nārāyaṇa as the cause of creation, maintenance, and destruction of the universe. You should know him to be causeless. He has no source. He is the source, and there is no source beyond him. Karana Karanam, the cause of all causes. And he acts in different ways. He remains in different conditions of dream, that's interesting, of waking, and of deep sleep. So you might be curious about these. It's the dreamy Lord is Karanadakashay Vishnu. The dreamy Lord is Karanadakashay Vishnu. The waking Lord is Kshirodakashay Vishnu, who's also Paramatma. And the Lord in deep sleep is Garbo Daka. That will be Karanadakashay Vishnu. Dreaming is Karanadakashay. Anyway, I'm confusing you a little. But these 3 Vishnus, they are in dream, waking, and deep sleep. Waking, Kiradakashay Vishnu, who's also Paramatma. Deep sleep is Mahavishnu or Karanadakashay Vishnu. And dreaming is Garbhodakashay Vishnu. He's also beyond these states. He makes the body, he makes the senses, he makes the life airs, he makes the mind move and come to life. Pippalaina further says, neither the mind nor the faculties of speech or sight or intelligence or the life air or any of the senses are capable of fully understanding this absolute truth more than small sparks can affect the original fire from which they are generated. So we are small sparks, and it is impossible for us to fully understand the fire that is our source, that is the Supreme Lord. He says, however, through indirect reference, the Vedic sound does serve as evidence of the Supreme Truth, since without the existence of that Supreme Truth, the various descriptions found in the Vedas would not have an ultimate purpose. Okay, so the Vedas give us some hope. Let's pause here and just reflect on what we're learning from Pippalaina. First, we can reflect on Nimi's inquiry. It seems he's already quite knowledgeable about God. He refers to him by a name, Nārāyaṇa. He describes him as the absolute truth. And he also describes him as present in the hearts of all living beings. So, what could this tell us? We can learn from this how even somebody who has knowledge and has understanding, they should recognize that their understanding is not complete. Who can fully say they know God, they fully understand God? So there's always opportunity for us to learn. There's always opportunity for us to deepen our understanding, and in that, to deepen our love as well. And so King Nimi, he shows humility. He shows us how to take advantage of the association of devotees. And because of these qualities, he will know the Lord, he will know God more deeply. From Pippalaina's response, we have a sense that intellectual inquiry, using the faculties of mind and senses and speech, they might be valuable, but they are insufficient for understanding God, because Nārāyaṇa, God, the Supreme Personality, transcends our limited senses. This suggests that we need a different process for trying to understand the Supreme Godhead. We are the sparks. God is the fire. What can the spark know about the fire that is so much greater? And so, what is our hope then in understanding the Supreme Absolute Truth? He says there is a process. We can get hints from the Veda. The Vedic knowledge is the revelation that is given to us. And through the sounds of the Veda, through the teachings of the Veda, we can get some sense of the Godhead. And so it's interesting. He says how the Veda sometimes teaches indirectly. God is not this, God is not that. God, like in the Upanishads, you'll have Tadejati, Tanaijati, Tadure, Tadvantike, Tadantarasya Sarvasya. God goes but doesn't go. God is inside but also outside. God is near but also far away. So these would be indirect references giving us some sense of how God transcends the limitations that we are imprisoned by. He can be both present, near, and far. He can be both going and not going at the same time. Other indirect references would be when it says things like Krishna is the color of a blackish blue, like a rain cloud. So the rain cloud, that is a blackish blue, gives us a hint as to what Krishna's complexion may be like. It's beyond our ability to comprehend, beyond our ability to perceive or understand, but the Veda is giving us indirect references to help us get a sense of the nature of Godhead. Okay, let's go to our second topic then. Pippalina starts to talk about Brahman. So verse 37, Pippalina says, originally one, the absolute truth becomes known as threefold, manifesting as the three modes of material nature: goodness, passion, and ignorance. So now God is being described as expanding. Originally one, now he is expanding as the material nature. And the characteristics of the material nature are goodness, passion, and ignorance. So we have Mahatattva that becomes agitated as pradhan by the three and activates as with the three modes of material nature now interacting within it. And that further expands then. Brahman further expands its potency as the power to act, the power of consciousness, and the power of false ego. So the power to act is rajas, the power of consciousness, sattva, false ego, ignorance. And then he says, thus by expansion of the multi-potencies of the absolute, the demigods, and the embodiment as the embodiment of knowledge, along with material senses and their objects and the results of material activity, karma, happiness and distress become manifest. In this way, the manifestation of the material world takes place as the subtle cause and the material effect visible in the appearance of gross material objects. Brahman, which is the source of all subtle and gross manifestations, is simultaneously transcendental to them, being absolute. So this is very interesting. He started by describing a personality of Godhead who is the source of everything. He is non-material. He's understood through can't be understood by material senses and mind and intelligence, but we can get some hints through the Veda. And now he's describing this expanded Godhead manifesting as the universe, manifesting as the worlds with so much material variety, senses, sense objects, form, desire, happiness, distress, false ego. And so we get an expanded sense of God as the universe, as creation, as both formless but with full of material variety at the same time. So the one has become many, has become the multitude. At the same time, Brahman is the source of these things but remains transcendental to them. So what can we take from this? We often identify with this temporary material world, mistaking it for reality. But here we are learning that our experiences in the material world are products of God's material energy, or Brahman, the formless energy of God manifesting as the material energy. And we can rise beyond this. We are only able to see the material world. We're told about a divinity who exists beyond the material world, who can be understood by hints of the Veda. And so next we're going to learn about our position in relation to this material nature that Brahman has expanded, or that God has expanded. That's verses 38 to 40. Pippalina says, Brahman manifest as the eternal soul, who was never born and will never die, nor does this soul ever grow or decay. The soul is the knower of the youth, middle age, and death of the material body, but it doesn't encounter these things. Thus, the soul can be understood as pure consciousness, existing everywhere at all times and never being destroyed. Just as the life air in the body, although one becomes manifest as many in contact with various material senses, the one soul appears to assume various material designations in contact with the material body. The soul is born in different species of life within the material world. Some species are born from eggs. What would they be? Chickens, snakes. What else is born from eggs? Scorpions. Others are born from embryos like you and I, marsupials. Others are born from the seeds of plants and trees, like plants and trees. And others, this is very interesting, from perspiration. I don't know any examples. Maybe some kind of bacteria born from perspiration. But in all species of life, the prana or vital air remains unchanging and follows the spirit soul from one body to another. Then he says we have practical experience of this. We are absorbed in deep sleep without dreaming. The material senses become inactive, and even the mind and false ego are merged into a dormant condition. But although the senses, mind, and false ego are inactive, one remembers upon waking that the soul, the soul, was peacefully sleeping. When one seriously engages in devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, fixing the Lord's feet in one's heart as the only goal of life, the soul can destroy these false material identifications and erase the results of one's previous fruit of work within the three modes of nature. And when the heart is thus purified, one can directly perceive both the Supreme Lord and oneself as transcendental entities. Thus, one becomes perfect in spiritual understanding through direct experience, just as one can directly experience the sunshine through normal, healthy vision. So, this is very interesting. Why is Pippalayyana? He was asked to talk about God, and now he's talking about the soul. This appears to be a shift from Nimi's question, which was about God, which was about Nārāyaṇa. Actually, it is central to understanding Nārāyaṇa, because in order to understand God, we should also understand who we are in relation to God. We learn that we are eternal, unchanging. We live beyond the body and the transformations of the body. And so this is the first step in self-realization, which then leads to God realization. So realize self and realize God. And Pippalayyana, he wants us to understand these things, because sometimes people, they say, God, the person, God energy, I'm part of that energy, I must be God. They arrive at that conclusion. They think that they think that you and I are God, although here we learn that we are part of God. We are not God, we are part and parcel of God. And what is our role? To engage in devotional service. By engaging in devotional service, we awaken awareness, knowledge of our spiritual nature and our relationship with the Supreme Godhead. And so Pippalayyana is answering King Nimi's question, saying to realize Nārāyaṇa, you should realize yourself. And you will realize yourself through devotional service. The Vedas will give you some hints, but you need to apply the Veda in service, and then you will get revelation. You will receive grace, divine grace, and through that divine grace, you'll come to understand. So wonderful teachings we have here from Pippalayyana and from this discussion of the Nava-yogendras. The question was, in one sense, straightforward enough, but it is most complex. Who is God? Tell me about God. But then we get an understanding of God as a person who then expands as the worlds. And then we find ourselves within those worlds. And so who are we in relation to God has also been explained. And How wonderful. How complete an explanation. Doesn't leave, yeah, it answers so many important questions so that we can have clarity. So let's conclude with a prayer. Beloved Krishna, eternal Lord whose essence eludes even the most profound intellects, we bow before you with hearts yearning for the ultimate truth. Just as Sri Pipalayana instructed King Nimi, teach us not to be content with fleeting glimpses of your divine nature, but to seek the fullness of your presence. In your feature as eternal Brahman, you manifest this world through your wondrous energies, yet remain untouched by the impermanence of creation. Guide us to recognize our true nature as eternal spirit souls, momentarily conditioned in this material world, yet inseparably connected to you. Through the gift of your devotional service, free us from false ego and worldly attachments, so that we may perceive you clearly within our hearts, within all of creation and beyond. Lead us from self realization to the loving embrace of your eternal, transcendental service. O Shamasundara. So there we conclude. Let me acknowledge some of you who joined us after we started speaking. And in the meantime, if you have questions, type them in the chat. That applies to whether you're present with us on Instagram or other platforms. Just type a message in the chat and we can discuss further. We have Kirtida with us from Norway, who sends Dandavat Pranams. Welcome, Kirtida. We have with us Nikunja joining us from Auckland, New Zealand. Welcome, Nikunja. Great to see you. It was great seeing you recently as well. Hari Priya, also joining us from Auckland, New Zealand, says, Hare Krishna Prabhu. Welcome, Hari Priya. And we have also from Auckland, Auckland is well represented today, Alicia, who says, Kia ora, Prabhu. Hope you're safe and well. Nectar, mate. Thank you for being here, Alicia. I'm guessing you might be at work. So grateful that you were able to join us. Monica Sharma joining us from Sydney, Australia, says Hare Krishna. And then we have a question from Shamalaki. I'll put it up just briefly because it'll take up the whole screen. And then I'll read the question. So Shamalaki says, to understand completely God is probably impossible, but our relationship with God is maybe more relevant for us, as God can be different for every soul, Krishna or Narasimhadev or Nārāyaṇa, etc. My question would be about Leelas. As we have fallen to this world to be part of God's Leela, maybe you can talk about different kinds of his will, different kinds of Leela, as God is cause of all causes. So we are here because of his will at the end. Shrishti Leela. Yeah, good. Yeah. This is an interesting topic as it shows us causality and belonging to certain spiritual family, etc. Yeah, very good. So thank you for that question. And Krishna's Leelas are wonderful and eternal and variegated, all kinds of pastimes he's performing. And one of those pastimes is the creation, maintenance, and destruction of the material world. What is our role in that Leela? In that Leela of his, lying in the causal ocean, breathing, generating universes, glancing upon them, activating the Mahatattva, impregnating the living entities within those universes, and then entering into them like an embryo, and then having the lotus grow from his navel, lotus stem in which planets are placed, and atop the lotus is Brahma. Brahma creating, and all of us being born in those different planets. What is our role here in these Leelas? Our role is that Krishna is enjoying this Leela of sleeping and creating material universes and then withdrawing them again. He's enjoying this Leela. At the same time, in performing this Leela, he's facilitating our will to try to enjoy separately from him, because he creates this world in a way, in such a way that he appears to be hidden. He says in the Gita, Sutre Manigana Iva. He says, everything rests on me as pearls are strung on a thread. The thing is, when you see a string of pearls, you can't actually see the thread, you just see the pearls. And so, although everything in this world depends on Krishna, we don't see him. And so that's mystical, that's wonderful. And because we don't see him, then we can get a sense of our being independent from him. And we think, I am the great doer, creator, and enjoyer. And so, like this, we are the souls who turn our face from God and try to enjoy separately from him. And he creates these worlds where we can experience that or try to experience that. And so his Leela is facilitating our will. And in this, he enjoys creating, maintaining, destroying. He also appears within these worlds to protect the pious, to teach truth, to teach Dharma, and to defeat demons. And then in those roles, he has many, many different pastimes, like appearing as a boar, Varahadev, or appearing as a fish and rescuing the earth by taking animals and seeds and sages into a great boat and leading them through the great flood, the partial inundation of the universe, and rescuing, teaching the Vedas at the same time. He enjoys appearing as a tortoise and as a half man, half lion. And then he enjoys coming personally with his entourage from Goloka Vrindavan and manifesting his eternal pastimes of Goloka Vrindavan within this world for all of us to see and hear about and become attracted to returning to him. So he's performing these pastimes that he enjoys in themselves. At the same time, he's trying to teach us and remind us of our relationship with him. And he's trying to attract us to return home. Come back home. Come back and enjoy with me. Don't try to enjoy separately from me. I know it's your will and I respect your will, but I would much prefer that you would come home to me. So these are all Krishna's pastimes. He's not forced to do them. That's the difference. We work, we have to work, we have to do things. We have to eat and sleep, and we have to defend ourselves. And there is an urge towards reproduction as well that may be controlled or not. But we are driven to act in certain ways. That it's a response to our karmas, but then our karmas shape situations that then force us to act in different ways. And so like this, there's an endless cycle. But Krishna acts only by his will. He does what pleases him, and that is Leela. That is his play. And so even though we're choosing to turn from him and that doesn't please him, still he enjoys facilitating that desire of ours. And he has a Leela of creation, maintenance, and destruction as well, and interacting with us in this material world. His Leelas in this world are, in one sense, eternal because they The Lord's forms are eternal and they continue, but they're also, in a sense, temporary because they manifest at a certain point and then they are unmanifest within this world. Although, they will be manifest in another universe. So in that sense, they're always continuing. But then Krishna withdraws all the material universes within him. But his pastimes in the spiritual world are eternal. They continue constantly. And so we are invited to join those eternal pastimes and revive our eternal loving relationship with him in those eternal pastimes in the spiritual world. Great question, Shamalaki. I'm very grateful. You also have a comment here. How lucky we are that we got the blessing to know Krishna as the most attractive and source of all sources, cause of all causes. And you cannot get higher than that. Absolutely. Ishvara Parama Krishna Sarva Karana Karanam. That's what you're citing there with your comment. Thank you for that. Just drink some water. Kirtina in Norway, acknowledging your gratitude. Jambavati in Sydney, Australia, says Hari Hari. My prayers and best wishes are with you, Jambavati. I know your health has not been at its best, so my thoughts and prayers are with you. Shamalaki says, if Krishna is calling us back home to Goloka, isn't death a good thing then? Why we fight to stay alive? Yeah, so that is a good point. And for the devotee, death is also an opportunity. So when death approached Dhruva Maharaj, he used death as a stepping stone to ascend into the Vaikuntha Viman. So whereas most people are afraid of death, the bhakta should not be afraid. We should come to that point where we're not afraid. We are fearless in the face of death because we see that opportunity to enter Krishna's eternal pastimes. Therefore, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, the Vaishnava dies to live. It's a nice contradiction. The Vaishnava dies to live, and while living, spreads the holy name around. That's what he wrote on Haridas Thakur's Samadhi. He says, he reasons ill who tells that Vaishnavas die, for thou art living still and sound. The Vaishnava dies to live, and while living, spreads the holy name around. Thank you for that. Let's just turn to Insta here, and we have some questions and comments. So, yeah, we have a question here from Mary Manju 2021 who says, I have a question, Prabhu. Prior to Srila Prabhupada translating the Vedic literature in English and other languages, much of the world would not have access to the knowledge to enter the spiritual world. Please help me understand why so many of us are placed in such a disadvantage. Those of us in the West would only have access to the Bible prior to the Vedas being translated. Therefore, only being able to attain heaven, which is still in the material realm. So, good question. Why is Krishna doing this to us? And the truth is that Krishna is reciprocating with each of us according to our desire, our choice. And so it is a disadvantage and it is unfortunate. But Krishna is not imposing himself upon us. Krishna is respecting the free will of the living entity. So if we've chosen to turn our face away, then Krishna, although he wants us to return to him, he's respecting that we have chosen to turn our face away. And so he's not interfering with our free will. As Paramatma, his position is neutral. Neutral means he witnesses what we do and gives us the results accordingly. Who makes the difference? How does the soul ever come to know of Krishna? if Krishna is respecting our free will and independence, it's by the grace of devotees. The bhakta has the power to give Krishna, and the bhakta is not committed to the free will or independence of the living entity. The bhakta is committed to telling everyone about Krishna and trying to awaken their good fortune. And so Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, Krishna se tomara, Krishna dite para, tomara shakti ache. Krishna is yours. He's speaking to the devotee. Krishna is yours. You have the power to give him to others. Krishna dite para. You can give Krishna to others. Tomara shakti ache. You have that empowerment because Krishna loves his devotees. And so when the devotee who has Krishna in their heart wants to share Krishna with others, and they say, Krishna, please see that soul who's chanting your name. Krishna, please see that soul who took your book. Please see that soul who has expressed some interest in visiting your temple. Then Krishna reciprocates because of the request of the devotee. So the devotee is creating our good fortune. Sometimes that good fortune is elevated to the masses by the mercy of very powerful devotees like Srila Prabhupada, who was able to spread Krishna consciousness far and wide, or Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appearing in the mood of his devotee, or others like Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya. They were able to share Krishna bhakti or Vaishnava bhakti with hundreds of thousands of people. And so at one time, so many souls who have chosen to turn their face from Krishna are awakened, and they become recipients of his grace, of his mercy. But this is a rare treasure. Out of many millions of people, Krishna says in the Gita, hardly one knows me in truth, or hardly one endeavors for perfection. And of those who endeavor, hardly one knows me in truth. So now to more specifics of your question, you're giving the example of people in the West who may not have access to Vedic knowledge, but they have. You give the example that of the Bible. So the Bible is also a holy book. It also glorifies God and glorifies God as the Father, as the Creator, as the Master, as the Lord. And so that is another Vaishnava who spread the glory of the biblical teachings far and wide, Jesus Christ. So people touched by that grace, they can also make spiritual advancement. Any authorized spiritual text. So Jesus, he spread the Bible far and wide, but even that Bible, there is an older Bible, the Older Testament that was there prior to Jesus. That was what he was teaching. And so that mercy is there through history. Sometimes more is revealed, sometimes less is revealed, according to the qualifications of people at a given time and the mercy that then becomes available to them. All of us, Manju, are on a journey. So where we are may be the result of many lifetimes, or it is the result of many lifetimes of spiritual inquiry and receiving grace and mercy over time. And so how quickly or how slowly we're able to take advantage of the mercy available to us, who can say? Who can say where any person is in their spiritual growth and development? It can be speeded up with good association, like Srila Prabhupada, such a powerful preacher. By his association, so many tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people, his disciples, then he passes it on to his disciples. So many people have been touched and awakened to pure bhakti, to pure devotion. So that is a very special thing. And Prabhupada's creating our good fortune. But it's not that anyone deserves it. It is a gift that is given. It is a grace that is given. And so this happens through history. Very powerful lovers of God come and they're able to spread God's glory in a very powerful way. And not that we deserve it, it is mercy that is given to us. There's a difference between justice and grace. So, justice, according to justice, then we remain in the cycle of birth and death, sometimes ascending to heavenly realms, sometimes descending to hellish conditions. But that's the cycle we remain in. But then we receive grace, we receive mercy, and we get elevated by that mercy. And that is our good fortune. So hopefully that gives you some more insight. Very, very good question. Let me acknowledge some of the others of you that are here. Sandha Shine, Mohir Hussain. We have also Vicky Maratha. Welcome, Vicky. So that's is it Raja Vrindalila in Govardhan Eco Village from, I recognize that name, from Cyprus. Great to see you. Thanks for joining with us today. I know it must be very, very late or early in India. So good to see you. Swag Boy, Ranjit, Biraj Raut, Varun Kumar, Margarita. Okay. Chaitanya Chintamani joining us from London. Great to see you, Chaitanya Chintamani. Thank you for being with us. Goma Gabar Smith, Gorgopal, Goma, Krishna Yadav, Sudevi's Art, Mama Sita. Thank you all for being here with us. So I think, well, hey, there's one more person to greet. So Kirida says, beautiful explanations. And then Srigandarvika, my wife, joining us here from New York City. Great to see you. Must have just finished your work shift. So thank you for being with us, joining the class. May you deepen in your appreciation for hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. May you deepen in your taste for chanting Krishna's holy name with attention and affection. May you deepen in your appreciation for Krishna's appearance in the form of his deity, in our homes, in our communities, in our temples. May you deepen in your appreciation for the special potency that is available to us in the dhams, in the places of Krishna's pastimes. Like our temples, also Vrindavan Dham, Mayapur Dham, Mathura Dham, they are surcharged with special spiritual potency. May you deepen in your love and affection and service to Vaishnavas. Take every opportunity to serve Vaishnavas and to cultivate loving relationships with Vaishnavas, with devotees. And through these practices, may your heart be moved, may your heart melt with love for Krishna, and may you be driven to share that treasure of love with others. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Ditai Gaur Premanandi, Harival. We'll see you on Wednesday, Thursday, depending on where you are.